Springer cord's on. All right, so when you open up Pro Archery Ballistics, you're going to come to the input page first off. At the top, you have the arrow build that you want to select. There's 5 options we have built in right here. We're going to be adding more later on. Next option is point type, field type, or broadheads. I'll get into why that will change in a minute here. Continuing down, you've got the build name, the arrow velocity. This is your arrow's velocity coming out of your bow. Arrow mass in grains, outside diameter in inches, total arrow length, number of fletchings, fletch length, fletching height, and fletching angle. At the bottom, you can change tabs. So we'll go to the table tab next. You always want to make sure that you're on the same build that you're wanting to look at. So in this case, that's build 3. We can have an update or refresh button just to make sure our data has loaded properly. Below that, we have a 0 or shot distance. Well, what is this? So this is the target distance relative to you that you want to look at. For example, let's say 40 yards. You can change whether you're interested in yards or meters below that. In the table, the orange icons at the top that from the start will say select one allows 2 columns of customizable data. You have velocity, drop, energy, momentum, time to target, and penetration in the iOS app. Penetration is not currently added in the Android version. Let's talk about all of these options here. First, velocity. Based on the drag, this will be your arrow's change in velocity all the way out to 140 yards, or meters if you have that option selected. You can then choose drop, and drop is relative to that shot distance you selected at the beginning. So when I chose 40 yards, my arrow starts at 0, climbs to 9 inches, and then drops back down to 0. And you can do this for any distance from 0 to 140 yards. For example, if I select 60, I know that I need a shot window of about 22 inches to shoot 60 yards. Next is energy. Again, you have an option of foot-pounds or joules, depending on what country you're in. This is just your arrow's energy at any given distance from 0 to 140 yards. You then have momentum. Again, customizable in 2 measurement types. Time to target in seconds. And then finally, we have penetration. So when we go back to the input page, I mentioned that I would talk about point type next. So when you select broadhead, a whole additional set of fields come up below the fletching angle. These are for your current broadhead that you're using, and these are used for the penetration estimate here on this page. This estimate is based on a model called the Poncelet model. This is the same model that the military has used to design bunker-busting bombs and things of that nature. It factors in everything from arrow speed to geometry, as well as the target itself, in this case, animals. We use an average density for hide and tissue. We are assuming that you don't hit any bones for this penetration estimate. And you can see how it changes from 0 to 140 yards for any given setup that you choose to enter. On the input page, you have some options as far as how you're going to describe your broadhead. Those are the number of blades, blade thickness, blade length along the shaft or ferrule, blade height, and so on. We have 2 separate fields for a main blade or a secondary blade if you have blades that are of different heights. You also have a sharpness factor. Lower the number, sharper the blade. For most standard broadheads that are factory sharp, you're going to want to choose 1 or potentially higher. The broadhead type, we have blade first, trocar, chisel, or a cone tip. And this is the tip of the broadhead because that does affect how the geometry is interacting as well as the sharpness of that tip with the tissue as far as the penetration estimates go. Moving on to the next tab across the bottom, we have the shoot for calculator. This is based on, again, the build that you have selected: English or metric units, sight marks or distant marks. On this page, the idea is you're going to input your ambient conditions. Okay, this is going to factor in temperature, dew point, and current pressure to get your absolute density at the current time. Then you choose a shot distance, and that is line of sight, so the measured distance from you to the target, not compensating for angle. You then factor in the shot angle, wind speed, and wind direction relative to your shot. You can choose an uphill or downhill angle below. Once you've set in these settings, you can hit step 1 followed by step 2 to determine what your shoot for distance would be in yards and your wind drift in inches as well as direction. If you choose sight marks, then you're going to have the shoot for mark instead of a distance value, but you'll still have wind drift in inches at the current time. This is based on your setup settings here for your sight, which populate when you toggle over the sight marks setting. Moving on to the sight tape page. The sight tape page has tons of options. Again, at the very top, you want to make sure that you're in the build that you're interested in examining. You can select yards or meters. The sight type, any vertical rail sight, such as your black gold, your ultra views, your excels, a lot of the CBEs, etc., are going to be in the first vertical rail option. Sights that have a curved dial where the yardage tape goes are going to be a little different. We currently support all of Spot Hog's offerings, the HHA Tetra and their new Nitrix, the Optimizer Lite, the Trophy Ridge, both the round knob as well as the vertical rail would be supported, and we're trying to add a bunch more. Please reach out if you'd like to get your sight added and it's not on the list. Below that, we have a couple input boxes. The first is your sight radius at full draw. This is a measurement from your pins to your peep, preferably the center of the peep. Try to be as accurate as you can on this, as it'll lead to a more accurate sight tape. Arrow to peep at full draw. This is from the center of your arrow shaft to the center of your peep. This is a very critical measurement. Try to be as accurate as you possibly can. Below that, we have distance, number, color. If you click the round dial knob, you'll be able to select any color. This will change the distant numbers. You can do that for the major ticks, which are the 20, 30, 40, and so on, as well as the minor ticks. You can have separate colors. You can then select a background color for the sight tape. Your scale adjustment input box here in blue is relative to the 1-inch scale at the bottom of the screen. Change this value until that scale reads exactly 1 inch. Get it as close as possible. At the top above the sight tape, you'll see a green toggle that says show 5-yard meters on tape. Toggling this on and off produces a red box. The lower line of that red box is your 5-yard mark for the sight tape. Inside of the box below this, you'll see a sight setup option here. This produces a value to give you a good starting point of where you should set your sight tape based on the 60-yard pin. This is measured with your arrow in the up position on the rest from the center of your arrow shaft to your 60-yard pin. For this particular build, that would be 2.538-ish inches. And that should give you a good starting point of where that sight tape should be placed on your sight. There's two buttons. One is the sight tape print click me button. as well as click here for video tutorials on the site tape page. Clicking the site tape print button will bring up a dialog box native to iOS or Android that will save, print, etc. for your site tape. Moving on to the More tab. The More tab has numerous options here. We have Notes, Advanced Settings, Arrow Build, Site Mark Table, Bow Tuning Assistant, Support, and Contact Us. We'll go through these now. The Notes page is just briefly a place for you to put any notes that you wish. It's a never-ending, endless stream of savable data. The Advanced Setting is a very special tab that you need to always pay attention to. In here, you can set your custom drag coefficient as needed, your elevation for density, if you choose to use an elevation number, or you can use input ambient conditions to set your site density. The density that you see on the bottom is the current density value being used. The third button down updates based on your input ambient conditions and saves this value to your site density. Again, we have a YouTube tutorial at the bottom of the screen for more information. The third page on the More tab is your arrow build. This allows you to compare two different arrows with their weight and velocity to see what their downrange performance would be. Site mark table allows you to generate site marks for any site from 0 to 140 yards. Also has the option to input a box of a corrected mark should this calculated mark be wrong. In the future, we're going to add the option of adjusting the model based on your inputted marks. Currently, it's just a saved value. Bow Tuning Assistant is something that'll be coming soon. We're going to be adding a bunch of options here that are going to be directed towards this app. And specifically tuning your bow, tinkering with your bow, we're going to have a lot of that coming later on. And then lastly, we just have a support contact us page here that you can go through. If you need any help, reach out anytime. We're here to help, get you set up correctly so that you can use all the advantages this app offers. It's been an overview here of Pro Archery Ballistics.